welcome to the Floor Stories podcast, brought to you by Flooring Pros Marketing.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Floor Stories. We're super excited for our next guest. We're proud to have Toby from Tontine Flooring joining us today, and looking forward to hearing a little bit about his journey in the flooring industry. Daniel, how about you?
Yeah, excited to be here again to talk to another member of the flooring industry who's been around the block, as we'll hear in a minute here. He's got a wonderful story, and really excited for him to share it with us all today. So we're pleased to have Toby Klyn from Tontine Carpet One with us today. Toby, will you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Toby Klyn. I'm from Buffalo, New York, born and bred in Buffalo, and it's a family business that I inherited. Company's been in business for 92 years, and I've been running it for the last 60. So I'm a veteran, hopefully not too wizened. In terms of what stages we've gone through in flooring, many stages. The one insight that I was sharing with David and Daniel is that I believe the equipment that I gained in the 20th century has to be broadened with the developments of the 21st century. I'm witnessing successes in the flooring business that is now being conducted that I would have had no idea. And they didn't exist when I started my journey. But that is one of the lovely things about being a part of this new generational business form. You do things more quickly. You do things more completely, which is a bit of an oxymoron. How can you be quicker and yet more complete? Well, it's all electronics. It's all in the ways that you can reach out to the public, and the public is more sensitive to those messages. Years ago, we had newspaper, we had television, we had radio. That was it. You fellas bring the electronic medium with a different twist, a different meaning. And I think that makes all the difference in the world to businesses, whether they're in floor covering or whatever else we're trying to pitch. The tools are much different. So that's my take in terms of what I'm seeing now, what I'm a part of now. In terms of
Before we dive into the beginning of your journey in the flooring world, tell us something that you're most proud of about Buffalo and being part of that community.
Well, Buffalo, I think for most of my early life, Buffalo had a bad rap. It was too cold, it was too wintry. You had to be a survivor. It seems like the weather has moderated a bit, and we're now an all-American city. And we've got the Buffalo Bills. So we've got this two great stanchions of success that have changed what we used to represent versus what I think we represent now. In terms of the floor covering business, it wasn't easy. I started out in the floor covering business. I worked in the back room. We didn't have a tow motor. We had a dolly. So we lifted carpeting up onto the dolly to make cuts. This is 60 some years ago. And we were not motorized, and we weren't turning out a lot of carpet cuts every day, but we were more of a hard surface company then in those years. Our business is moderated, and hard surface and soft surface. Once we were the initial class of Carpet One in the summer of 1985. So basically that's a 40-year membership, and that has changed the whole way we do business in terms of the protections that we give the consumer along the line: price protection, happiness protection. If they're not happy with their floor, we'll replace it free. Quite a benefit to give the consumer. And many, many other marketing avenues that Carpet One has helped a retailer develop, where we wouldn't have had that muscle, develop those ideas and develop those marketing plans that over 40 years we've exhibited and experienced. So this has made us a leader in many innovative aspects. As I said, I used to I innovated in the 40 years ago with Armstrong and Mannington. We were big players in hard surface. We also bought truckloads of vinyl specials that we would sell around the world. We had a number of hats that we wore in those years. But I think the new elements are greater tools than we had in terms of marketing. And that's my hats off to you guys. And I believe that that's the way any business has to have to survive. We're up against Home Depot, we're up against Lowe's as retailers of floor covering, floor and decor. All these stores are huge suppliers. We can't match their muscle in that regard. We have to do it in service. We have to do it in guarantees. We have to do it with a personal touch. And these are all things that we believed in, but they're now mandated more than ever. And we feel that we've developed them in many, many new ways to take on the giants in our industry. They were not here 40 years ago, specifically, or 45 years ago.
Back then. Well, let's talk about the beginning. I mean, the Tontine, the business that you're currently operating, has been around for over 90 years. And then you started taking over it 62 years ago, as you said. And then 40 years ago is when you joined the Carpet One. So let's talk about that journey from the beginning, how it originated, where the business was when you took over, or when you at least started in it. What were you doing for customer generation then? What were you doing for marketing? And what inspired you and prompted you to join the Carpet One family as one of the founding members?
This podcast is brought to you by us here at Flooring Pros Marketing. If you'd like some help telling your floor story, reach out to us at sales@flooringprosmarketing.com or visit our website at flooringprosmarketing.com. Have a great day.
Well, I think it goes to what we said earlier. The marketing tools that we had, let's say in the 60s when I started, we had newspaper. Buffalo News was a very strong provider, good reach. We had television and radio. We didn't do much television and radio. We were a newspaper advertiser. That was where our budget was. We made sure we got good co-op. We made sure that amortized some of our expenses. And we were not trusting the electronic world. You couldn't get co-op as easily in those days with electronic. The factories were much more traditional. You put an ad, they saw the news billing, they said, okay, our product is this percentage of the ad, we can mark the ad up. So that was a mechanism to offset our advertising costs. It was a straightforward mechanism. Electronic was not as straightforward, and the factories were not as straightforward in providing co-op funds for electronic. They were more distrustful of how it reached. You couldn't count the number of people who heard your message. Was not sophisticated. It's certainly not like the streaming stuff that you guys talked about, where you can mark and measure. So newspaper was the measuring tool, and the factories were much more comfortable with it. And that's where we put our dollars. In terms of ads, I would say we repeated the ads continuously. In newspaper, you don't have as much flexibility as in terms of the kind of material you guys are entertaining. We were banging on one pipe or two pipes. So it was a completely different form of communication. We did not have the methodology or the mechanisms to communicate the way you guys are communicating with our consumers now. It's wholly different avenues. So we stayed in that trough for many, many years. And then all of a sudden, we found it wasn't doing it. It didn't get it done. Newspapers became less impactful. And as I said, we never really learned how to television, which we think now with you and the internet is much more employable. But there was a trough, even though we were a Carpet One member. I would say in the late 80s and early 90s, we found that advertising, the traditional advertising that we had done, was not doing it for us anymore. We were looking for other ways to reach our consumer. The business had cycles. We had good years. We had great successes. We exported, as I said, some of the hard surface factories gave us access to their off goods, and we sold them all around the world. They're great stories of selling to South America and the likes of that. And we had a lot of fun, but the models have changed. The models have changed. In terms of advertising now, I think the model is dramatically different. So that's my, in terms of jobs, yes, we got involved in commercial work. But the only thing we found out about commercial work, very tough to get paid, even though you did a great job. And it tied up a lot of capital, and you can't go to a manufacturer if the manufacturer gives you generous terms of 60 to 90 days, and you can't say on the 90th day, hey, we didn't get paid. Can you wait another 90 days? These people are giving us a tough time. We found that out to be a very difficult form of existence, because you stressed your relationship with your manufacturer, and you found out you didn't have the clout with the customer once you had provided them with what they wanted. Now that you're Toby who? He's calling for 90-day OZs. Are we going to pay him? No. So these were the kind of experiences you have over decades, and lessons that you learn, or lessons that we learn. Other people may have different ways of collecting money, different ways of factoring their clients, but those were the lessons we experienced over a number of years. And it changed our behavior. In terms of retailing, our retail customer payment protocol now has become very good. The financing avenues that we can give a customer are much more sophisticated. We can give them a 2-year program, no interest, which is very successful, or a 1-year. Everybody's giving 1 year, no interest, and that's all money that we don't have to put out. That money comes to us the next day. Yes, we pay a percentage, but the money's there, and you need money to run your business. And if you don't have the money, nobody wants to say it's like the government hasn't paid, so many people. People don't. People need their money. Factories need their money, and this has been a very new, successful way of getting that to them. What else, Daniel and David? What other aspects do you?
Well, I'd like to hear about what it was like being one of those initial founding members of a Carpet One group, and what benefits you noticed right away, working with other flooring stores, and how that transformed the already successful business that you had run, or was already around for 50 years already. And so what were the catalysts for you to join Carpet One, and what were the things that you noticed over the years, at maybe the beginning and then up until now, that have really helped you guys?
Well, it's strange. I met Alan Greenberg 1978. Alan called me. I'd never met Alan. He called me to ask if an advertising individual who was doing our advertising, the man's name was Irv Pliskin, he asked me, could I recommend Irv? And I did. And he invited me to come out to St. Louis and meet him. And he showed me an operation that I was agog. He had all kinds of marketing ideas that he had developed, and he shared them with me. And he indicated to me that he was thinking of starting a co-op. And he asked if would I be interested. So it took a number of issues to come to be. But 7 years later, he invited me to come and be one of the initial 40 people who were in the convention hall in Atlanta to start up Carpet One that he started with Howard Brodsky. And the thing that was the most exciting was that you found like dealers that you could communicate with. They weren't in your city. You could share your what ifs and problems and try to figure out solutions. So the whole thing was the camaraderie and the electric transfer of information and knowledge. It was kind of like lightning in that regard. Well, you do this that way? Oh, I never thought of that. Well, that's a great idea. And so that was a benefit. The other thing that was a benefit is what Alan did. Alan was always they were a hard surface and carpet, but they bought very well. And Alan brought that tradition. So as a buyer, that first session, we realized we weren't buying product anywhere near as well as we were now that we were in Carpet One. So that was an immediate benefit, and it gave us to to realize that we could be more successful against the Home Depot and those kind of organizations that were now fully in Buffalo, and fight on even footing. So those were two very important lessons. It just so happened in 1984, the AFA, which is the precursor to the American flooring, I don't quite how they did it, but I became in charge of the convention for the AFA from 84 to 93. So I became familiar with all the vendors because I would go out and pitch them and be at our show. And the benefit to Carpet One was Carpet One had a great new marketing show, which is now Surfaces in Vegas. But in 84 through 93, we ran it in a number of different venues. I think it may have been in Atlanta. I can't quite remember, like Surfaces is now in Vegas. But I was somewhat instrumental in that regard and helped Carpet One bring new members in because they were at these shows and Carpet One was there, and boom, a lot of marriages took place. So that was a formative period in my business development. And obviously Carpet One has grown. They've got maybe 10 divisions now, 8 or 10 divisions, and they're broadening who they're selling to all over the United States and Canada and Australia and various other aspects. But I was somewhat instrumental in terms of that phase of their growth and bringing a number of people on board. So that was helpful.
That's awesome.
Helpful to me.
Those must be fond memories. That's great.
One started Surfaces.
Well, Carpet One didn't start Surfaces. Surfaces is really the brainchild of the vendors. The vendors need to talk to new potential buyers. And that's what Surfaces is. Surfaces is the national show of floor covering vendors. But that show, the AFA really created it in 84 in conjunction with the vendors. But I'm saying Carpet One membership, I think, increased because of that show. That's all.
Mm-hmm. So besides the marketing and the mediums that you're using to connect with potential customers, what are some things that have changed a lot from the time that you're operating a flooring business 60 years ago to today, and things that haven't really changed in terms of the fundamentals of operating a flooring business? What are you noticing in that regard?
That's a great question that I really had not dwelt on until I watched some of the things unfolding recently. I think the proposition is the same. The proposition is if you build a better store presentation, the consumer is much more apt to give you their attention. And Carpet One mandated 2 years ago that we put in new racks that were more uniform, less cluttered, and more pleasing to the consumer to shop it. As a result of this change 2 years ago, our consumers seem to feel welcomed and feel comfortable in shopping our store. The proposition is not so changed. The proposition is if you have a good environment so that the consumer feels not a threat, but feels that you're there to help them, you can then present what you got available, specials, regulars, and qualify them and make a sale. And we're seeing that old tradition change because of our displays and change because of our store usability so that the consumers are now more able to make a decision and take a sample home. The displays have a sample take-home proposition, which has always been a bugaboo. You're always missing samples. They're not back on the racks. The system is much more systematic, and therefore the next consumer can walk in and find that same sample that the other consumer had taken, but you can call Carpet One and get a replacement sample in a snap. So those are some of the changes that make the basic proposition still take place, but more effortlessly. I don't know if the basic proposition is someone's coming in, they want to, as you say, they want to become familiar, they want to be disposed to enjoy the shopping experience, and we think we're giving them that more now than we ever did in the past. But it still takes a dedicated salesperson, store management, to make that transition connect, and the consumer then decide to purchase from you. So I don't know where old and new meet, but that's what's happening.
So, Toby, question for you, bud. So obviously you said this was a family business. You said it's 92 years old. You've been doing it for 60 years. So there was 30 years before you got there. Was that your family ran
Yep.
the store? Who started the store? And then what made you decide, hey, yeah, this is a career path for me?
Tradition. I was 20 years old when I started. It was just it was an assumption. You're going to take over, my boy. And so it has stuck. But I
Did you
don't
ever
know.
have any second thoughts? Question that? You always like, yeah, okay, this is great. I'm going to do this.
I don't think it was ever, it's okay, I'm going to do this. This is the mandate. If you're going to follow a tradition, it's never the aspect, oh, this is okay and great. It's, this is what is expected. So I don't know if that's really how it all got played. It just seemed like it happened.
Any regrets that it happened that way? Or are you happy with the
No.
way this went?
I'm happy, very happy. And if you're on the same path for 60 years, you see many changes. We've been lucky. We've had some good things happen that had nothing to do with planning, nothing to do with our innovative aspects, nothing to do with that. Just good fortune. And as a result, we've had good fortune help us along the way. So at this point in time, David, I would say I'm delighted. And it's not so important to succeed at this point in time. I've played in enough hands to see what success is and feel that I can do enough of it to be proud and feel good about what we're contributing. We've got a lovely group of people, good team. Did I create that? I don't know that I did. My wife works in the business with me. She's helps make that team process take place. And I think I've mellowed in this later period. So I don't know where to attribute what.
That's great. What are
Yeah.
some of what are some of the fondest memories that you have over the years? I mean, you mentioned the selling shipments of floors to South America and things like that. What are some of these kind of foundational moments over the years that you look back fondly on, and maybe one moment that was not so fond that you say, hey, I wish I had done this differently, because if I had done this differently, I think this would have happened.
Daniel, that's a great question. I would say now that what I did to survive and maintain the energy of the company in the 20th century does not do it in the 21st century. I would say the lessons that you guys are teaching are more pertinent. We didn't have those tools. We didn't have the electronic capacities that you have, but it's just so neat to walk into a room and not know how to do something electronically, and someone who's 20 or 30 years younger than me say, oh, just do this, that, and this, and all of a sudden there it is. So I believe that that's the way of the future. Do I have fond memories? Absolutely. Did I get appreciation from vendors and the public along the way? You bet. But in terms of security, I would certainly say Carpet One provided a more secure foundation. That's 40 years ago when it started. But I would say the more securing that I'm witnessing is the kind of impact we are developing to reach the public now. And I don't know if that makes sense to you fellas, that this should be the case, but I think that is something that we're seeing. How do you reach the public? How do you develop them as a fan club? And we never even thought of that as a method of doing good business. So that's the change I've seen, that I think is a way that we would like to pursue. And just as another aspect, Carpet One has started a program where they're asking every dealer who interacts with a customer business.
This podcast is brought to you by us here at Flooring Pros Marketing. If you'd like some help telling your floor story, reach out to us at sales@flooringprosmarketing.com or visit our website at flooringprosmarketing.com. Have a great day.
So that's the change I've seen, that I think is a way that we would like to pursue. And just as another aspect, Carpet One has started a program where they're asking every dealer who interacts with a customer to record the name of the customer and to reach out to the customer as many times as they can to just keep that base in place. That is a whole nother way of doing business. And it's a part of the business that you folks are in. We did not think in those terms. And it seems to me that it's profound. And that you can, as we just talked earlier today, it is a way to build a relational discourse with that family. If you get to that level, and they think of you not as a flooring store, but as a colleague or an interested party, and that's a whole new gig for me. That to me is what I think is so different.
In terms of flooring itself, you've probably seen a lot of trends come and go, right? You've talked to me about VCT. You guys sell the VCT. We've talked about luxury vinyl planks and how that's been a trend over the last, decade and a half or so. What do you see as timeless in the flooring industry when it comes to surfaces? And, what do you think is just a trend, and why do you think so?
Well, one of the things that I invented, this happened at Armstrong's plant in 1981. It's going back a few years ago. Armstrong came to me and they said, well, how do you sell so much sheet vinyl? What do you do? What can we do to make that happen? And I'll never forget this. I'm walking down a corridor in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they have posed this question. And all of a sudden, like a lightning bolt, I said, I've got it. And all the people in the room said, well, what do you have? I said, we're going to give them a goof-proof guarantee. And they said, well, what in the world is a goof-proof guarantee? I said, you've got these floors that now you don't have to cement down. They had new flooring systems that didn't require full adhesive. I said, if they take the floor and they make a mistake cutting that floor in, you'll agree to take the floor back and give them a new floor. Armstrong looked at me. They said, we are nuts. 6 months later, they sold 700 carpet color tile stores, flooring racks, giving them the goof-proof guarantee. So it was a smash. And it is essentially the foundation that Carpet One now calls the beautiful guarantee, which if you buy a carpet or a laminate or LVP and you have no mistakes, but you're just not happy, they'll replace it within normally 30 or 60. You have a 30, 60, or 120 day period of time to make that decision. So that is a fond memory, and that is an innovation that is still existing today in the beautiful guarantee at Carpet One, all stemming from this event that happened to me in 1981. So I think those forms of making the customer feel less insecure about tackling an installation, do-it-yourself job, which is where we started. I think those are ways to help the consumer feel like they're with a team, and we think those tools help make that connection.
That's great. I love the goof proof. That's great branding. That's amazing. Yeah, you have your fingerprints on a lot of the flooring history here. It's wonderful. David, any other questions about flooring specific or the flooring store before we get to the final one?
Frankly,
We're gonna end it here, but I think we'll have to have you back on to talk about the innovating for survival and innovating and running the gauntlet. I think those I'm sure you have some great stories that you could share about some examples of how you've had to innovate over the years that we'd love to hear the next time. So thank you for spending your time with us and sharing your story. Thank you.
Yeah, that was wonderful just to hear. And it's always interesting to hear how you made the connection from when you first got started into now and sort of the evolution and how you're, really when you boil it down, it comes down to how you're communicating with customers, and it has changed a lot. And it seems like over the years, you've still been able to think in those ways so that you didn't get left behind and you're still here doing business. And I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Hey, Flooring Pros, thank you so much for spending your time and listening to this episode of the Floor Stories podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share with our audience, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out using one of the methods below this video, or go to our website, just search for Floor Stories Podcast, and you will find a form to be able to sign up. Have a good one, and thanks for listening.